who should not do cannabis at all. There is a growing body of research supporting the fact that some people, especially young males with a genetic predisposition to bipolar disorder or schizophrenia or other forms of psychosis, if they do high THC cannabis, can exacerbate or maybe even trigger psychosis. I got myself into some, let's just say, friction territory by putting that out there. But after getting attacked for saying that, there was another group of researchers that came in and supported that. You see data on both sides.
For the first time ever, there are more people who consume cannabis on a daily basis as opposed to alcohol. So let's talk about who should and who should not consume cannabis. So right off the bat, I have a couple of thoughts. If you are young, I'm talking about those teenagers who are 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, this is not the time to start using cannabis. If you are in any of those age ranges, and anybody before 24, 25, honestly, you really shouldn't use cannabis. And if you use it, you shouldn't use high potency cannabis, or you shouldn't use it frequently. Because when you're young, your brain is still developing. This means that the cannabis can interfere with the brain development. It could lower your IQ. It could increase the risk of psychosis. And it's just not the best time to use it. When it comes to the risk of psychosis with cannabis, every 1 out of 200 people who use cannabis will experience psychosis at some point in their lives. And that's about 0.5%. So you hear those stats and most people would say, oh, I can take my chances with that. I'm good. Keep in mind that if you have a genetic predisposition to bipolar disorder and or schizophrenia, that percentage is higher. So another group of people who probably shouldn't use cannabis or should be very careful with it are people who are genetically predisposed to bipolar disorder and or schizophrenia. Another group of people who shouldn't use cannabis are women who are breastfeeding and or pregnant. So cannabis can cross into the placenta, and this can lead to adverse effects for the baby, and mama wouldn't want that. So while you're pregnant and when you're breastfeeding, we should be careful with cannabis. Now that we've talked about who shouldn't use cannabis, let's talk about who could use cannabis. I always answer this question the same exact way. If you want to use cannabis, the best time to do it is after your brain has formed. So 25, 26, 27. Keep in mind, if you're neurodivergent, if you have ADHD or autism, there's a good chance that your frontal lobe develops later in life. So this might be your early 30s. Whenever your brain is finished forming, this is the best time to use cannabis if you must consume it. At this point, you won't have the negative cognitive effects long-term as opposed to somebody who started at 11, 12, or 13. And with the youth that start at such an early age, it's a terrible thing because if your memory is going to be impacted, your IQ is going to be impacted, the risk of psychosis is going up. And this thing has become a method of relaxation for you. This is your mood stabilizer. This is how you relax. Then behaviorally, you're going to tell yourself that whenever you're stressed, I got to get back to the weed. Whenever I'm upset, I got to get back to the weed. And the bad thing about this is that cannabis strips us of our ability to do hard things. And negative emotions are our biggest catalyst for change. So when you go through something that's painful, or you go through a rough period in your life, you don't like how you feel, so you are naturally motivated to make a change in your life. However, if you suppress those negative emotions with something like cannabis, it can be very difficult for you to make that change that you need to get back on the right path in life.